Hey there, picture this. I'm Emma, 34, and I built a $12 million empire from the ground up. I bought houses for my husband's family, paid for their vacations, and thought I'd earned their respect. Then, at a swanky party with 50 guests, my mother-in-law, Margaret, stands up, points at me, and hisses, "You're worthless. Get out of my house." My jaw dropped. The room went silent. After pouring my heart and soul into supporting them, she tore me apart in front of everyone. Can you even imagine that kind of betrayal? Want to know how I turned her cruelty into my triumph? Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into how I left it all behind for a new life on Charleston's shores. I'm telling this from Savannah, Georgia. Where are you watching from? Growing up in Savannah's roughest neighborhood, life wasn't easy. My dad was a plumber, coming home with grease-stained hands after fixing pipes all day. Mom worked late shifts at a grocery store, her feet swollen from restocking shelves. Our tiny apartment was cramped, with peeling paint and the constant hum of a noisy fridge. We scraped by, sometimes eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, but my parents gave me something priceless: grit. "Emma," they'd say, "hard work can take you anywhere." That lesson became my lifeline. At 14, I started hustling, gluing seashells onto old jars to make vases and selling them at the local flea market. My first $5 sale felt like $1,000,000. I saved every cent, dreaming of a life beyond Savannah's cracked sidewalks. By 16, I'd bought a used laptop and taught myself to design flyers for small businesses. That hustle was my ticket out. Then I met Nathan, my high school sweetheart, whose family lived in a Forsyth Park mansion. Nathan saw my spark, but his mom, Margaret, looked at me like I was trash. "A plumber's daughter," she sneered. Her words lit a fire in me. This is the story of how I built an empire, only to have her try to tear me down, and how I walked away stronger. You just heard how my mother-in-law, Margaret, humiliated me at a fancy Savannah party, calling me worthless in front of 50 guests after I built a $12 million empire. Her words cut deep, but they weren't the start of the story. Let's go back to where it all began, my childhood in Savannah, Georgia, where life taught me to fight for every inch. My parents were the hardest workers I knew. Dad spent his days as a plumber, crawling under houses to fix leaks, coming home with calloused hands and a tired smile. Mom clocked long hours at a grocery store, restocking shelves until midnight, her back aching but never complaining. We lived in a rundown apartment in Savannah's toughest neighborhood, where the walls were thin and the air smelled of damp concrete. Money was tight. Some nights, we'd split a can of soup 3 ways, but my parents gave me something richer than cash: a belief that hard work could rewrite your story. "Emma," they'd say, "you can do anything if you don't quit." At 14, I started chasing that truth. I'd spend weekends at the flea market, selling vases I made from old jars and seashells I found on Tybee Island. Each $5 sale felt like a step towards something bigger. I'd stash every dollar in a tin under my bed, dreaming of a life beyond Savannah's grit. By 16, I'd saved enough for a second-hand laptop, staying up late to teach myself graphic design and marketing tricks from free YouTube tutorials. Those late nights, fueled by instant coffee and ambition, were my first taste of what I could become. Then came high school, and with it, Nathan. He was the golden boy from Forsyth Park, where Savannah's elite lived in sprawling mansions with wraparound porches. We met in art class, where I was sketching ideas for my next market stall. Nathan leaned over and said, "Emma, you make old junk look like art. That's magic." I thought he was just being polite, but his kind eyes said otherwise. We clicked instantly, trading dreams over charcoal pencils. He'd grown up with private tutors and country club memberships, but he saw me, the girl in thrift store jeans, as someone special. Nathan became my biggest cheerleader, telling me I could outshine anyone. His family, though, was a different story. The first time I visited their Forsyth Park estate, I felt like an imposter. Their foyer alone was bigger than our apartment, with chandeliers sparkling like diamonds. Margaret, Nathan's mom, greeted me with a smile as cold as her iced tea. "So, Emma, your father's a plumber?" she asked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "How quaint." I swallowed hard, nodding. Nathan's dad, Robert, a self-made lawyer, was warmer but distant, like he wasn't sure what to make of me. Nathan's siblings, Claire and Lucas, mirrored Margaret's chill, keeping me at arm's length. Margaret didn't hold back her disdain. "A girl with no college plans won't last in our world," she told Nathan once, thinking I couldn't hear. Her words stung, but they lit a fire in me. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting to prove I belonged. That fight would shape everything, from my empire to the moment Margaret tried to break me. You just heard how my childhood in Savannah's toughest corners and my early hustle selling seashell vases set the stage for my dreams. While Nathan's belief in me sparked a love that defied his mother Margaret's icy disdain. Her words, "A girl with no college plans won't last," echoed in my mind, but they only fueled my fire. High school was where Nathan and I became inseparable. In art class, we'd sketch and laugh, dreaming of a future where we'd build something big together. Nathan wasn't like the other rich kids in Forsyth Park. He didn't care that my jeans were secondhand or that my dad fixed pipes for a living. "Emma," he'd say, his green eyes sparkling, "you're the most driven person I know. You're gonna change the world." Those words carried me through late nights designing flyers for local shops, saving every penny for something bigger. But meeting Nathan's family was like walking into a lion's den. Their Forsyth Park mansion felt like a museum, with polished floors and portraits staring down at me. Margaret's welcome was a masterclass in polite venom. "So, your mother works at a grocery store?" she asked, sipping her martini, her smile sharp as a blade. I nodded, my cheeks burning. "How resourceful," she said, the word dripping with contempt. Nathan's dad, Robert, was different, a lawyer who'd clawed his way up from nothing. He'd nod approvingly when I talked about my hustle, but he never challenged Margaret's barbs. Nathan's siblings, Claire and Lucas, were polite but distant, like they'd been trained to keep me at arm's length. Margaret's judgment wasn't subtle. I overheard her before our junior prom, whispering to Nathan, "She's a sweet girl, but she'll hold you back. No education, no future." My stomach twisted, but Nathan shut her down.
"Mom,
"Emma's future is brighter than anyone's here." That moment solidified us. We became a team, balancing my grit with Nathan's optimism. Senior year, Nathan got into Duke University. His dad's alma mater. While college wasn't in my cards, money was too tight. "You could get scholarships," Nathan urged, but I had other plans. "I'm starting a business," I told him, my voice steady. "College can wait." He respected that, even if Margaret didn't. "No ambition," she'd mutter when I skipped college fairs. Nathan and I made long-distance work when he left for North Carolina. I stayed in Savannah, working 2 jobs, waitressing and designing logos for small businesses. Nights were spent in the public library, teaching myself marketing and video editing. Every email from Nathan cheering me on kept me going. At 22, I took a leap, launching a small video production gig for local restaurants. I rented a corner of my parents' garage, using my old laptop and a borrowed camera. My first client, a taco shop, saw their sales double after my ad campaign went viral on Facebook. Nathan would visit, sitting on a folding chair in my makeshift studio, saying, "You're building an empire, Emma." Those early days were tough, plenty of ramen dinners and self-doubt, but Nathan's faith never wavered. Margaret's voice, though, lingered in my head. "She'll never be one of us." I was determined to prove her wrong, not just for Nathan, but for the girl who sold vases to survive. That drive would lead to my biggest wins, and the moment Margaret tried to crush me. You just heard how Nathan and I became a team in high school. His belief in me pushing back against his mother Margaret's biting judgment that I'd hold him back with no college degree. Her words stung, but they lit a fire under me. While Nathan studied at Duke, I stayed in Savannah, juggling waitressing shifts and logo design gigs, teaching myself marketing at the library. At 22, I took a leap with a video production side hustle, and when my first ad for a local taco shop went viral, I knew I was onto something. Nathan's visits to my cramped garage studio, his unwavering, "You're building an empire, Emma," kept me going. But Margaret's voice, calling me ambitionless, never left my head. That fire to prove her wrong drove me to build something massive, even as her disdain grew. Those early years were a grind. My video production gig, which I named Coastal Stories, started small. I'd film promos for mom-and-pop shops, editing until 3 a.m. on a laptop that sounded like a dying fan. My first big break came at 23, when a Savannah boutique hired me to create a social media campaign. I poured my heart into short videos showcasing their staff's personal stories, like the cashier who designed dresses after hours. The campaign exploded, tripling their sales in a month. Word spread, and soon I had a roster of clients, from bakeries to hardware stores. Nathan, back from Duke, proposed that summer in a quiet park under Savannah's live oaks. I said yes, tears in my eyes, knowing he was my partner in every way. Margaret, though, was less thrilled. At our engagement party in their Forsyth Park mansion, she cornered me by the dessert table. "I hope you know Nathan could have had anyone," she said, her voice low and sharp. "A girl from your background is lucky to be here." I forced a smile, my fists clenched. "I'm not here for luck, Margaret. I'm here for Nathan." Our wedding was small, at a local garden, with my parents scraping together savings to make it special. Margaret contributed too, but made sure everyone knew the exact dollar amount. Her backhanded comments, "It's quaint for a budget affair," cut deep, but I focused on Nathan's joy. After the honeymoon, we settled into a one-bedroom apartment in Savannah's historic district. Nathan started a finance job, wearing suits his parents bought, while I turned our closet into Coastal Stories headquarters. That first year was magic, despite our tight budget. We'd cook cheap pasta dinners and dream about our future. But Coastal Stories hit rough patches. At 24, I lost my biggest client to a bigger agency, and my laptop crashed, wiping out unbacked work. I was ready to quit, crying on our thrift store couch. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this," I told Nathan. He pulled me close. "Every success story has bumps, Emma. You don't quit." His words were my anchor. I doubled down, focusing Coastal Stories on emotional storytelling, videos that made customers feel connected to brands. At 25, I landed a game changer, a regional coffee chain struggling against Starbucks. My campaign, featuring baristas' personal triumphs, went viral, boosting their sales by 40%. Coastal Stories took off. By 27, I had 10 employees, a downtown office, and clients across the Southeast. My income surpassed Nathan's, and when I showed him my quarterly earnings, 6 figures for the first time, he grinned like a kid. "You're unstoppable," he said. We bought a 4-bedroom house in a nice Savannah suburb, not Forsyth Park fancy, but ours. I insisted we pay for it ourselves, no help from Margaret's checkbook. "This is our win," I told Nathan. Margaret's resentment grew with every milestone. At family dinners, she'd toss out barbs disguised as compliments. "It's amazing what you've done without a degree, Emma," she'd say, her smile tight. "The internet makes it so easy these days." Nathan's dad, Robert, started asking about my strategies, respecting my hustle, but Margaret doubled down. "New money lacks class," she'd mutter. I'd bite my tongue for Nathan's sake. My success was changing lives, hiring kids from my old neighborhood, setting up my parents so they'd never work nights again, but Margaret saw it as a personal affront. That tension was a ticking bomb, waiting for the night she'd try to shatter me in front of everyone. You just heard how I turned my hustle into Coastal Stories, a $12 million empire, transforming local businesses with emotional video campaigns while navigating Margaret's growing resentment. Her barbed comments, like calling my success "new money lacking class," piled up, but I kept pushing, proving her wrong with every client win. By 27, Nathan and I owned a 4-bedroom house in Savannah, bought with our own money, a symbol of our shared dreams. Yet, Margaret's disdain was a shadow over every family gathering, her words sharpening with my success. I thought I could handle her jabs for Nathan's sake, but my generosity to his family would soon expose just how deep her contempt ran. Setting the stage for the night, she'd try to break me. Coastal Stories wasn't just a business, it was my heart. I hired folks from my old neighborhood, giving them a shot like I'd gotten. I set up a scholarship for kids skipping college to chase entrepreneurial dreams, pouring my earnings into hope. Nathan was my biggest fan, bragging to his coworkers about Emma's marketing genius. But his family? A mixed bag. His dad, Robert, a self-made lawyer, started respecting my grind, asking about my strategies over Sunday dinners. Nathan's siblings, Claire and Lucas, were polite but followed Margaret's lead, keeping me at a distance. Still, I wanted to be part of their world, not for Margaret but for Nathan. That's why, when Claire hit a rough patch after art school, I stepped up. She'd racked up $60,000 in student loans and couldn't find a job to cover them. At a tense family dinner, she broke down, admitting she might lose her apartment. "We've got you," I said without hesitation. Nathan and I paid off her loans and funded a digital design course to boost her skills. Claire's tearful hug meant everything. A year later, Lucas faced a health scare, a rare condition needing $80,000 in treatments his insurance wouldn't touch. I wired the money the next day. "Family doesn't let family suffer," I told him when he tried to refuse. Margaret's reaction? A tight-lipped, "How generous," her eyes cold. I brushed it off, thinking I was building bridges. Then came the real gut punch. Nathan and I planned a family trip to France as a Christmas gift, first-class flights, a chateau in Provence, the works. I covered every dime, nearly $50,000, wanting to create memories. Margaret accepted the trip, but later told Claire, loud enough for me to hear, "Emma's just flashing her money to buy our approval." My stomach twisted. I wasn't trying to buy anyone, I was trying to be family. The final straw came when I discovered Nathan had been quietly paying Margaret's $15,000 a year country club dues from our joint account for 2 years. She'd asked him to cover it after a bad investment, claiming it was temporary. I confronted Nathan, my voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed. "Mom was embarrassed. I didn't want to make it a thing." I felt betrayed, not by the money, but by the secrecy. Margaret, who called me classless, was fine letting me foot her elite lifestyle. Her hypocrisy fueled her attacks. At every Forsyth Park dinner, she'd needle me. "It's nice you're keeping busy with your little videos," she'd say, sipping wine, as if Coastal Stories wasn't employing 20 people and landing national clients. When I shared we'd hit $12 million in valuation, she scoffed. "Internet fads don't last." Nathan would squeeze my hand under the table, whispering, "She's wrong." But her words were poison, and I was tired of swallowing them. I'd built a life from nothing, supported her family, and still, she saw me as the plumber's kid who didn't belong. The tension simmered until it boiled over. I kept going to those dinners, hoping to keep the peace for Nathan, but each one chipped away at my spirit. Margaret's jabs grew bolder, targeting my childless status or obsession with work. "A woman's real job is family," she'd say, eyeing me. I'd smile through gritted teeth, but inside, I was screaming. Nathan tried talking to her, but her apologies were hollow, her behavior unchanged. I started wondering, how much was I willing to take to keep Nathan from being torn between his mom and me? That question would find its answer in the most explosive way, at a night that changed everything. You just heard how my $12 million empire, Coastal Stories, became a beacon of hope for my community, while I poured my heart into supporting Nathan's family, paying off Claire's loans, covering Lucas's medical bills, and even footing Margaret's country club dues, without knowing. But Margaret's resentment only grew. Her jabs at my new money and internet fads slicing deeper at every Forsyth Park dinner. I endured her venom for Nathan's sake, swallowing my pride to keep the peace. But the weight of her contempt was crushing. I was starting to question how much I could take before I lost myself. That breaking point came at a night meant for celebration. when Margaret's cruelty exploded in front of everyone, pushing me to a decision that would change my life. The evening started innocently enough. Claire had landed a big promotion at a top Savannah design firm, a milestone tied to the digital design course I'd funded. Margaret planned a lavish party at their Forsyth Park mansion to celebrate, inviting 50 of Savannah's elite, lawyers, socialites, and old money families. I wanted to honor Claire, so I dressed carefully, a sleek navy dress. Pearl earrings Nathan gave me for our 5th anniversary, my hair swept up. Nathan squeezed my hand as we pulled into the mansion's circular driveway. "You look amazing," he said. "Let's make this about Claire." I nodded, hoping to avoid Margaret's usual barbs. The mansion glowed under chandeliers, with waiters weaving through guests holding flutes of champagne. Claire was radiant, thanking me publicly for my support. "Emma believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," she told a group of relatives, her voice cracking. I smiled, my heart full. Then Margaret, already on her 3rd glass of wine, cut in with a laugh too loud. "Well, Emma's got money to throw around, doesn't she?" The room chuckled awkwardly, and I felt the familiar sting. Nathan's dad, Robert, shot her a warning glance, but Margaret's cheeks were flushed, her eyes glassy. I braced myself as we sat for dinner in their grand dining room, crystal glinting under candlelight. The conversation started safe, Claire's new role, Savannah's art scene, but Margaret's restraint unraveled. When Nathan mentioned Coastal Story's recent feature in a national marketing magazine, she snorted, swirling her wine. "Self-taught success, how charming," she said, her voice dripping sarcasm. "The internet makes anyone a star these days." The table went quiet. Nathan's jaw tightened. "Mom, enough." I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. "I've learned plenty outside a classroom. Margaret, results speak louder than degrees." She waved me off. "Degrees bring refinement, dear. Something money can't buy." The main course arrived, but Margaret wasn't done. As Claire talked about starting her own studio, I offered gentle advice. "Build a client base while you're employed. It's how I started." Margaret slammed her glass down, her words slurring. "Claire doesn't need tips from someone who got lucky on TikTok. She has a real education." Gasps rippled across the table. Claire flushed, whispering, "Mom, stop." Nathan dropped his fork. "That's out of line." But Margaret leaned forward, her face twisted. "No, I'm tired of pretending. Emma's a nobody who trapped my son with her flashy money. She's no better than her plumber father." The room froze. My heart pounded, but I stayed still, refusing to give her the reaction she craved. Lucas spoke up, his voice low. "Emma paid my medical bills, Mom. Show some respect." Margaret's eyes blazed. "Nobody asked her to play savior. She's desperate to buy her way into this family." Nathan stood, his chair scraping. "Apologize. Now." Margaret laughed, bitter and sharp. "Apologize? To her?" "Nathan, you threw your life away on a worthless girl from the wrong side of town. Get her out of my house. Out of our lives." The words hung like poison. Robert stared at his plate, silent. Claire and Lucas looked away, embarrassed. The guests shifted uncomfortably. I rose slowly, placing my napkin beside my untouched meal. "Thank you, Margaret, for showing everyone who you are," I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside. "I'm done here." Nathan reached for me. "Emma, wait." I shook my head. "Stay with your family, Nathan. I'll see you at home." As I walked out, head high, Margaret's voice trailed after me. "Good riddance." The Uber ride home was a blur, but when I stepped into our empty house, tears finally fell, not from sadness, but from relief. The truth was out, and it set me free. You just witnessed the night Margaret's venom reached its peak, publicly branding me worthless at Claire's celebration, ordering me out of her Forsyth Park mansion in front of 50 stunned guests. After years of enduring her contempt, supporting her family's dreams, Claire's loans, Lucas's medical bills, their lavish vacations, I walked away, my head high, telling Nathan to stay and face his family. The Uber ride home was a haze. But as I stepped into our quiet Savannah house, relief hit me like a wave. Margaret's cruelty had shattered the facade of family harmony I'd clung to for Nathan's sake. That night, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep living in her shadow, and the answer lay 300 miles away in Charleston. Alone in our house, I replayed years of Margaret's slights, her new money jabs, her sneers at my uneducated roots. I'd built Coastal Stories, a $12 million empire, from nothing, yet she saw me as less than human. Exhausted but resolute, I booked a flight to our Charleston beach house, a 3-bedroom haven with white shutters and a porch overlooking the Atlantic. I need space, I told Nathan over coffee the next morning. My voice steady. His eyes widened. I'll come with you. I shook my head. This is between you and your mom. I need to think alone. He nodded, pain flickering across his face. But I had to prioritize my peace. Landing in Charleston, I felt the ocean air wash over me. The house was a sanctuary, its open windows carrying the rhythm of waves. For days, I did nothing but walk the shore, letting the salt air untangle my thoughts. I swam in the cool Atlantic, feeling lighter with each stroke. My phone stayed off, except for brief check-ins with Nathan and my Coastal Stories manager. In Savannah, I'd been a problem solver, always compromising for others. Here, I rediscovered Emma, the girl who'd sold seashell vases with fearless ambition. Charleston's quiet beauty gave me clarity. I couldn't return to a life where Margaret's disrespect was swept under the rug. Nathan called nightly, his updates heavy. I confronted Mom, he said on day 3. She says she didn't mean it. I sighed. That's not an apology, Nathan. It's an excuse. By week 2, his tone shifted, tinged with frustration. When are you coming back? We need to move on. But I wasn't ready to bend. I'm not to be treated like trash, I said firmly. I deserve a home where I'm valued. The silence on his end spoke volumes. I wasn't punishing him, just refusing to live in a cycle of toxicity. I set up a desk by the porch, working remotely as Coastal Stories CEO, my creativity surging in this new space. Clients emailed, thrilled with our latest campaigns, unaware of the personal storm I'd escaped. One night, staring at the stars over Charleston's horizon, I realized Margaret's outburst had been a gift. It forced me that I'd spent years chasing her approval, sacrificing my spirit to keep Nathan's family intact. No more. I vowed to set boundaries, even if it meant hard choices. Nathan's calls grew strained, his instinct to play peacemaker pulling him back to Savannah's status quo. But I was done pretending. Charleston was more than a hideaway. It was my reclaiming of self-worth. The next step was facing Nathan, knowing our love might bend, but it wouldn't break unless we let it. That confrontation was coming, and I was ready to demand the respect I'd earned. You just saw how I fled to our Charleston beach house after Margaret's vicious, worthless outburst, seeking peace after years of her venom. In Savannah, I'd buried my pain to keep Nathan's family together, but Charleston's crashing waves and open skies gave me clarity. I deserved respect, not tolerance. Working remotely as Coastal Stories CEO, I felt my spark return, but Nathan's calls revealed his struggle to break free from his peacemaker role. His pleas to move on clashed with my resolve to never again accept Margaret's toxicity. I knew our love was strong, but it needed new boundaries to survive. That test came when Nathan showed up unannounced, forcing us to face the cracks in our marriage head-on. 3 weeks after I left, I was sipping coffee on the porch, the Atlantic shimmering, when Nathan's car pulled into the driveway. My heart raced, part relief, part frustration. I couldn't stay away, he said, dropping his bag, his face worn but determined. You're my home, Emma. I crossed my arms. You could have called. I needed space. He flinched. I'm your husband, not a guest. The air between us crackled with unspoken hurt. We sat on the beach that night, the tide pulling at the shore, and I laid it bare. Nathan, I can't go back to Savannah's dinners, to Margaret's jabs. I've spent 7 years proving myself, and she still calls me trash. Where were you when she humiliated me? His eyes glistened. I stood up for you, Emma. I told her to apologize. I shook my head. You did, but when no one else, your dad, Claire, Lucas, spoke up, you stayed silent too. You've always smoothed things over instead of drawing a line. He looked away, the truth stinging. I thought I could fix her, he admitted. I've been doing it my whole life. I softened but held firm. I need a partner who puts us first, not your mom's feelings. He nodded, his voice low. I'm trying, Emma. Tell me what you need. We started virtual therapy the next day, a Charleston counselor guiding us through raw conversations. Nathan began to see how Margaret's manipulation had shaped him, making harmony his burden. I never realized how much I let her control me, he confessed, his voice breaking. I saw the boy I'd fallen for in art class, fighting to grow. A week in, Margaret called, her half-hearted, I may have been harsh, apology dripping with expectation. I put her on speaker. 7 years, Margaret, and you call me worthless. That's not a mistake. It's who you are. Her silence was deafening. Nathan cut in, his tone firm. Mom, until you respect Emma, we're done with these games. That moment shifted everything. Nathan's resolve grew. And we talked about staying in Charleston permanently. This place feels right, he said, watching the sunset from our porch. I agreed, envisioning coastal stories, new branch here. We weren't erasing Savannah, just choosing a life where we thrived. Nathan quit his finance job to join Coastal Stories as COO. His Duke degree streamlining our operations while I drove creative campaigns. Our love deepened, rooted in mutual respect, not sacrifice. But Margaret's shadow lingered, and I knew we'd face her again. The question was whether Nathan could hold the line, or if old patterns would pull him back. That test was closer than I thought, and it would define our future. You just saw Nathan join me in Charleston, where therapy helped us confront his peacemaker role and set firm boundaries against Margaret's toxicity. His stand, telling her, respect Emma or we're done, marked a turning point. We decided to make Charleston our home, with Nathan as Coastal Stories COO, blending his business savvy with my creative vision. Our love grew stronger, rooted in mutual respect, but Margaret's influence still loomed. As we built our new life, I wondered if she'd ever change, or if we'd have to cut ties for good. That question hung over us as we redefined family on our terms. Charleston became our haven. Coastal Stories thrived, opening a new office overlooking the harbor. Its campaigns for local businesses going viral. I led from our beach house, inspired by the ocean's rhythm. Nathan's structure scaled our growth, landing clients from Miami to Boston. We hosted Claire and Lucas for a weekend, their support a balm after Savannah's tension. You guys are killing it, Claire said, sipping wine on our porch. Lucas nodded. Mom's wrong about you, Emma. Always was. Their visits felt like family, real, not forced. Even Robert came, quietly apologizing for his silence that fateful night. I should have spoken up, he said. I hugged him. You're here now. Margaret was another story. She declined our invitations, her silence loud. Nathan shrugged it off, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. 6 months in, she agreed to a short visit with Robert. She stepped off the plane, stiff and subdued, our beach house's open beauty seeming to shrink her. At dinner, she muttered, You've done well here. Nathan took my hand. We're building what we want, Mom. Her lips pursed, but she stayed civil. Progress, maybe, but not enough. I didn't need her approval anymore. Coastal Stories' success, our Charleston life, and Nathan's loyalty proved my worth. We settled into a new normal, balancing work and sunset walks. Claire and Lucas planned regular visits, while Margaret's grudging civility hinted at a fragile truce. I stopped chasing her respect, focusing on what mattered, our empire, our love, our peace. But a return to Savannah loomed, a chance to face my past and inspire others. That moment would test everything we'd built, showing me just how far I'd come from the girl Margaret called worthless. You just saw how Charleston became our sanctuary, with coastal stories thriving and Nathan, Claire, and Lucas embracing our new life, while Margaret's reluctant civility marked a shaky truce. I no longer craved her approval, focusing on our empire and peace. But a return to Savannah called, a chance to face my past. I organized a free workshop for young women entrepreneurs, sharing my journey from selling seashell vases to building a $12 million business. The event drew 300 attendees, their eager faces filling Savannah's community center. I spoke of grit, failure, and self-worth, my voice steady. Then I saw Margaret in the back, her expression unreadable. My heart skipped, but I kept going. Your value isn't tied to degrees or someone's opinion, I said. After, I invited her on stage. Respect is earned through actions. I told her, the crowd hushed. She nodded, eyes glistening, offering no apology, but a quiet acknowledgement. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Back in Charleston, I felt lighter. My roots in Savannah now a source of pride, not pain. That workshop wasn't just for them. It was my way of proving Margaret wrong, once and for all. You just saw how my Savannah workshop empowered 300 young women and marked a quiet shift with Margaret, her nod a small step toward respect. Back in Charleston, that moment freed me, turning my past into strength. Inspired, I took Coastal Stories' mission further, launching the Rise Up Fund with $1 million from our profits to support women entrepreneurs skipping college. The fund offered grants and mentorship, targeting dreamers like teenage me, selling vases to survive. Nathan and I hosted a gala in Charleston's historic district to kick it off, with Claire and Lucas as ambassadors. The event raised $500,000 more, drawing national media. Every woman deserves a shot to shine, I told the crowd, my voice full of purpose. Coastal Stories' new Charleston office buzzed with projects, and our life, sunset walks, late-night planning, felt whole. Margaret's shadow faded. Her civility grew, though I no longer needed her validation. The fund's first grant went to a Savannah girl starting a bakery, her grateful tears echoing my own journey. This wasn't just about money, it was about legacy. Proving worth comes from heart, not approval. But a final test with Margaret was coming, one that would seal our story. You just saw how the Rise Up Fund transformed lives. Starting with the Savannah Girls Bakery, cementing my legacy of empowering women like the teenage me who sold vases. Charleston was our haven, with Coastal Stories thriving and Nathan, Claire, and Lucas as our true family, while Margaret's civility grew, though I no longer sought her approval. But one final moment with her loomed me, testing the boundaries we'd built. A year into our Charleston life, I heard Margaret visited again, this time alone. Her demeanor was softer, her usual sharpness dulled. Over dinner on our porch, the ocean Atlantic humming, she spoke haltingly. I saw your workshop, Emma. And the fund. I misjudged you. It wasn't a full apology, but her eyes held a flicker of regret. I nodded. Respect is a choice, Margaret. I'm glad you're making it. Nathan smiled, his pride clear. That night closed a chapter. My journey, from Savannah's rough streets to a $12 million empire, taught me that worth isn't tied to degrees or someone's nod. Margaret's worthless barb had been a painful gift, forcing me to choose myself. Here's what I learned. Don't wait for others to see your value. Set boundaries with those who diminish you, whether family or not. In work, trust your unique path, college or no college. Your hustle defines you. If you're stuck in a toxic cycle, walk away. It's not giving up, it's reclaiming your power. I did, and found peace in Charleston's waves, a business that changes lives. And a love with Nathan stronger than ever. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up for your worth against family or naysayers? How did you do it? Share your story. It might spark someone else's courage. This journey wasn't just mine. It's for anyone who's been undervalued but kept rising. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave. Not to escape, but to build a life where you shine. My parents' words echo. Hard work can take you anywhere. Charleston's my anywhere, a home where I'm free, whole, and enough. Thanks for listening. And keep chasing your truth. You're worth more than you know.